One of the most romantic poems of all time. It's lived for hundreds of years. It is dedicated to a woman's beauty. It's in the title itself. She walks in beauty, dedicated to the sensuality of a woman's corporeal form. And so I ask you, what does she look like? Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear, of course, in the poetry discussion playlist here on the channel. Today's poem is She Walks in Beauty by Lord Byron, and it reads as such. She walks in beauty, like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes, thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies, one shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. And on that cheek and o'er that brow so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. Now, I'll ask again. The poem is titled, She Walks in Beauty. Tell me what she looks like. The only real sort of hint that we have is raven tress. Black hair seems to be about it. But if we're being fair, black hair only really has to be mentioned if it is in contrast with her face. So probably we can get from this that her face is light, very white, very pale. This used to be all the rage. But if we're being fair about being fair, this was the rage because what it meant was that woman was not having to work out in the sun. So, not having to work out in the sun meant that she was of some status, or at least was being provided for in some way. She was seen after, if you will. So really, raven tress just means dark-haired, probably over or softly lightens over her face in contrast with light skin, but that tells us something about her personality. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. She walks in beauty. Well, that doesn't tell us anything about what she looks like. Like the night. No, still not. Of cloudless climes and starry skies. Okay, so again, the image that we're given is a contrast between very pale and very dark. The moon against the night sky. All right, I get it, I guess. And all that's best of dark and bright. We get the same thing yet again. So, if we keep getting this, should we take something deeper from it? This contrast between the dark and the light. Well, if we're looking at things in a philosophical fashion, the contrast between the dark and the light that meet in her eyes, thus mellowed to that tender light. So she is taking in all of these things and staring them down. She's taking in the contrast between the light and the dark and staring it down, mellowing it out. So really, it's not about the extremes. The very next line even tells us which heaven to gaudy day denies. She's dealing with the interesting values between the light and the dark. This would seem maybe to be pointing to the fact that this woman is even tempered. This woman in question is, in fact, intelligent. It seems to be speaking to her emotional intelligence, EIQ. She's something, perhaps, of a Stoic. Okay, well, that's just the introduction here. That's just the first stanza. We don't get a whole lot about her appearance there. Maybe she's some type of scholar. She is even-tempered. All right, fine. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace. Well, grace is a funny word to choose because it does mean, it can be seen as a perhaps physical marker. Someone moves with grace. Still, it's not really a comment on appearance. But still, we're talking about those values between the light and the dark and how they are half impaired with this nameless grace. So we're talking about here how the individual in question, the woman at hand, traipses between those things, not sullying herself with either the light or the dark, instead remaining graceful between the two. Then we have the couplet that we started with, which waves in every raven tress or softly lightens over her face, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. Where thoughts serenely sweet express. Well, that's not talking about her jawline or her bosom. We're not speaking about what a cute button nose she has or her long eyelashes. No, it's her thoughts. Where thoughts serenely sweet express. How pure, how dear their dwelling place, how dear her mind. The place where those thoughts dwell. How dear her mind where those sweet thoughts dwell. And on that cheek, here we go. And o'er that brow, here we go. So soft, so calm, yet eloquent. Well, this isn't talking about her eyebrows. She didn't get her eyebrows done here. We're not talking about her fancy haircut. We're not talking about any of that. We're not talking about her clavicle, right? That's one of those things that they say men unintentionally find attractive, a clavicle. We're not talking about that. So soft, her expression, so calm, her expression, yet eloquent, her expression, her countenance, if you will, the smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent. Again, this is about temperance. This is nothing about her appearance. A mind at peace with all below. A mind at peace with all below. The woman in question accepts herself. A heart whose love is innocent. So we get, through this entire poem, she walks in beauty without a written expression of the love's hubba-hubba qualities, without anything telling us really how this woman looks, nor, and this is important, I think, not only does it not tell us how this woman in question looks, it's not even complimenting it. He's not sitting here saying, oh, baby, the birds would be in heaven to rest on your eyebrows. Right? I mean, that sounds like a pretty good compliment, right? Oh, honey bun. The bunnies have nothing on your wiggly nose. I mean, that would get you going, wouldn't it? Oh, sweetheart. Um, the running brooks have have pale in comparison um, to your nose in allergy season. Maybe that's too far. But we never get any of it. This entire poem, one of the most famous love poems of all time, one of the most famous poems dedicated to beauty, one of the most famous poems to have beauty in the very title, tells us nothing about how the subject of this poem looks, nothing of their countenance. How strange. That's all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on the channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, so hit the subscribe button because I would love to have you back for the next one.